Hello students, welcome in our today's online lecture where we are going to talk about a poem or a sonnet on his blindness written by John Milton. Students, this poem is prescribed in BA Part 1st of English Literature Paper 1st of Poetry and Drama in MGSU Bikaner. So let's have a brief talk about our today's poet, who is John Milton. He was born on 1608 and died in 1674. Milton is a great English poet who wrote famous epics like Paradise Lost and Paradise Regained. He was born in a middle class family. He also took an active interest in politics. After the execution of Charles I, he was appointed Latin secretary to the newly formed Council of State. His earlier poems were influenced by his knowledge of Latin and Italian literature. His poems like L'Allegro and Il Penseroso belong to the tradition of Elizabethan lyrics. They are the finest expressions of his joyous and sensitive poetic nature. In his later years, Milton became blind. So, our today's poem is specifically depicts the blindness of the poet, the speaker here. Actually, Milton, who has become blind at the age of 44, and during this stage, what feelings aroused in his heart and what kind of disturbances he faced. About all these things, he has tried to put in this poem. And what he says, let's begin the text. Here we are, I am reading for you. On his blindness. When I consider how my lights is spent, ere half my days, in this dark world and wide, at that one talent which it death to hide, lost with me useless, though my soul more bent. So, here you see what kind of light about which the poet is talking here. The light is here means his eyesight. Actually, Milton, who has become blind at the age of 44, he is deeply disturbed. He thinks that he will not be able to do any kind of fruitful things in his life because of his blindness. He thinks that what he thinks when he says, when I consider how my light is spent ere half my days in this dark world and wide, and that one talent which is death to hide, lost with me useless though my soul more bent. So consider means here to think. When the poet is in deep mood or when he gets deeply disturbed due to his blindness, he often gets in deep mood and he thinks about which he thinks about his light, why his light has spent, it means why he has become blind. Light means his eyesight, why his eyesight has gone away. Are half my days in this dark world and wide. Now, what happened? He says that in this situation, when he has become totally blind, now there is all darkness. What he finds that everywhere a kind of darkness is prevailed. It seems that the whole world is full of darkness, and this is also very wide. It means it doesn't have any limit or any boundary. It seems infinite to him. And that one talent, what kind of talent the poet is talking about here? The talent means his poetic creativity, or his we can say his ability, his the talent, his literary artistic talent about which he is talking, that which is death to hide, lost me with useless, though my soul more bent. Lost means kept. that he thinks that now when he has totally become blind, now he has become useless. It means he thinks, he gets totally disappointed, that now what will he do, because his only talent was the poetic talent, about which he is saying that now at this he thinks that he will not be able to do any fruitful things in this dark and white world. And God has given him the talent to write poetry, that one talent which God has given him, and the talent to write poetry. But what happens now? But he no longer can use his poetic talent now. It is lying useless with him. And though my soul more bent, he is very keen to use his talent. He means at the core of his heart, he wants to use his talent in its full capability, full ability. Yet the loss of his eyesight is a very big handicap. So now he is become helpless due to his blindness. Now moving ahead, to serve there with my Maker and present my true account, lest he returning chide. Doth God exact day labor light denied? I fondly ask, but patience to prevent. Now, what happened? Chide. Here, chide means to rebuke. Doth, it's the archaic form of the word doge. Prevent means to stop somebody. So now, to serve there with my Maker. My Maker means here the poet denotes directly to his Maker, means here to the Almighty God. He is he wants to serve his God. As we know that Milton is a religious poet, so this poem is basically a religious poem, and he wants to convey his deep religious feelings towards the Almighty God, to Maker. He says that like a deeply religious man, Milton wants to serve God. He has a burning desire to present my true account. He means he has a burning desire to present the true account of his life to God. But lest he returning chide, doth God exact day labor light denied? I fondly ask, but patience to prevent. In spite of his willingness to serve God by writing poetry, how he can serve the God? He by writing poetry, because this is the only talent, his poetic talent which he has. He finds himself totally helpless. So actually it seems that Milton faces a moment of crisis in his life, and it is a crisis of faith. Lest he returning child. He says that I often used to ask that doth God exact day labor light denied? What he is trying to say here actually, that when he has become now totally blind, and he thought that the gift of poetry which he has been conferred upon him by God was almost leaving useless with him in his state of blindness. Now what he could do, though his soul was also inclined to write good poem in praise of in praise of the Almighty God. So in this way he wants to serve him, but he wanted to write good poetry. And when he often gets aggravated in his heart, he He often fondly asked to himself in a complaining mood whether God required full work from a man who had been deprived of eyesight, light denied means who has been deprived of eyesight. So, though such a questioning only showed the foolishness of the poet here. For why? Because he never wanted to question the wisdom of God. Yet, in a state of desperation and grief, he would put such question to his soul and get relief from the expression of his feeling. Now, next, that murmur soon replies, God doth not need either man's work or his own gifts. Who best bears his mild yoke, they serve him best his state. His state is kingly, thousands at his bidding speed, and post over land and ocean without rest, they also serve who only stand and wait. So, during his state of blindness, Milton faces moment of crisis in his life, and he foolishly asks if God would demand full utilization of his talents even if he has become completely blind. So he does not want to be rebuked by God. Just he returns. He is very upset. So after then, what happened? The kind of restlessness which Milton faces during this moment, during his state of blindness, in the next part, Milton's restlessness vanishes away. So an idea comes to his mind. What? That he listens a kind of murmuring sound, which is a kind of reply. His grumbling attitude is suppressed by patience. He thinks that God is very kind. God did not need either man's work or his own gifts. He himself thinks that God is very kind. He does not require man's work, nor does he want that somebody should return the gifts which God has given him. What can we give him that is not his own? Milton's view of God is that he is the master and man is under his yoke. Okay, bear his mild yoke. Who best bear his mild yoke? They serve him best. So he thinks that God is his master and man is under his yoke, that is in his bondage. Thus, those who gladly accept whatever joys or sorrows he sends are his true servants. His state is kingly, thousands at his bidding speed, and post over land and ocean without rest. They also serve who only stand and wait. So, the poet is conveying the basic his ideology or his deep faith in God, that God is the mightiest king. His state is kingly. He is the king of the king, mightiest king. He has thousands of at his bidding speed. He has thousands of angels at his beck and call. They carry out his orders faithfully. Those angels who always are ready to fulfill his every orders with faith, with wholeheartedly or faithfully. They are never at rest, without rest, and post over land and ocean without rest. Those angels, those who are they? They are never at rest. They are posted over land and sea. Milton comes to realize that those who patiently wait for his orders are also his true servants. So, this positive response he gets within himself, he tries to console his disturbed mind or his disturbed soul, that if he is not able to write poetry, that's okay. the poet should not feel disturbed about his this physical incapability. What is important is one's willingness to serve him. That is something very important. So the poet is no longer upset by the loss of his eyesight. So gradually poet accepts this fact that what happened, it if he has become blind. So he actually in a way tries to console his disturbed mind that it's okay if he is blind. He is he gains this positivity within himself, that he is no longer upset by this by the loss of his eyesight. So the best way to serve God is not through the worldly achievements, but through complete devotion and surrender to God. So in the concluding line of this text, when the poet openly declares that they also serve who only stand and wait. So thus Milton's inner voice makes him realize the true meaning of service. He regains himself to the will of God. He humbly accepts whatever has come to his lot. If he has become blind, so it's also good, and he thinks that now he regains his self confidence, and he totally surrenders at the service of God. He resigns himself to the will of God. So thus now he no longer murmurs against the will of God. So this poem here we can find that this is basically a devotional poem. So these are the concluding lines of the sonnet, and he is very much aware that he had not written much by this time. He had great talent of writing poetry. He was sad to think how he would explain before God the true account of the talent he gave him, and he himself asked a question that God exact day labor light denied. But it was a sinful act to question God's action. His own patience gave him the reply that God is kingly. He only wants complete surrender and full devotion or full faith in God. So uh, the poet now is able to believe that the people who simply stand and wait to do active service are as good servants of God as those who are actually performing active duties. So this is our today's poem. So I hope that you have understood the basic idea or the theme of this sonnet. So thank you, students. We will meet again in our next class. Okay.